Emanating from the piney woods of East Texas, this is the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show. RLG has been playing music since the mid-70s. Ricky Lynn Gregg was the very first country artist to have a website and the first Native American country artist signed to a major label. In the 1990s, he had count them, six top 10 CMT videos. He had 3 studio albums, including one that reached the top 40 on the Billboard charts in 1992. He has had 3 top 75 Billboard singles, including the number 36 If I Had a Cheating Heart in 1993. And of course, almost 30 years later, he is the current and reigning 2017 ETX Music Guitarist of the Year. Guys, this is the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show.
Careful what you wish for, it might come true. Boy, and if it does, what are you gonna do?
Welcome to the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show, sponsored by ETX ROCKS. And I want to say it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to a young man I knew before he was even born. And I know that sounds silly, but his father Art and his mother Jackie were part of my family's life before he came along, and were dear friends and still are dear friends. And I'm talking about none other than Chad Mauldin. Chad, it's good to see you. I'm going to hand you 5 because I love you that much, brother.
Good to see you.
Chad is now the operator of the old KSIJ studio in Gladwater, Texas. If some of you, I won't call you old timers, but if you know anything about the history, they had such people as Elvis recorded there. They had the great Johnny Cash recorded there. And Jerry Lee Lewis even has his
signature on the vocal booth wall.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And there's more. What's fascinating about Longview, and Chad, help me out right here. People wondered why did those artists record around this area?
Yeah.
But Elvis used to drive a truck through Pritchett,
Sure.
Texas, and through Longview, and
Right.
stop at the Rio and play. Tell us a little about what you know and why there would be a possibility that they would stop at a studio in Gladewater.
Yeah, well, Gladewater, these days we think of Gladewater as just a little quaint town and has a lot of antique stores, and that's precisely what it is. But in the 50s, it was on that rockabilly circuit, and a lot of those guys came through there and played. And there's an Opry in town it's not under the same ownership since the 50s, but it's the same building, and it was an Opry in the 50s, and they would play there too. And so there's a lot of history as it regards sort of traditional country, and then also the rockabilly movement in the 50s.
Do you remember back, this had to be more than 20 years ago, but they had a series called Elvis. And they would speak about Gladewater and Gilmer and Longview. Do you remember this?
No, I don't, but I'm just sort of taking it in.
They did, and I was dumbfounded. I said, how could this possibly be?
Little Gladewater, Texas.
Gladewater, Texas. And this was some of the reasons. In Elvis's case, he was a truck driver.
Yeah.
But he had so much talent.
Yeah.
And if you know much about Elvis, he joined churches, didn't join churches. He was sneaking back of churches of color, of our African Americans, and that's where he learned that soul and that push and where to sing on those upbeats. I mean, Elvis.
He didn't learn it from the Presbyterians.
He didn't learn it from.
That's for sure.
But that's where he got a lot of it from. And I say these things because when he got to this area, he realized there were places like KSIJ.
Yeah, right.
That would accept him for that fact that he was different. That's why that he took the time to use these areas to exploit his talent, his great talent.
Right.
I want to point out that you were awarded the ETX Music Producer of the Year Award of 2017.
Yeah.
And man, right on time. Matter of fact, maybe a little too late.
Perhaps.
I even won an award myself that year, and for the guitar player, and very proud of it because I, like you, put myself into the guitar, and as you put yourself into producing, because you came from Granbury, for you and I did some tracks
Yeah,
in Granbury.
that's right. I was making a
Texas.
record for a little gal. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, anybody ever been to Granbury, Texas? You will look at one of the most beautiful spots.
Yeah.
And I've been to a lot of, I've been halfway around the world 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Just outside of Fort Worth a little bit, 45 miles or so.
Just go that way west and go that way north.
Yeah, there you are.
Well, there she is, and it was beautiful. And you were there for 9 years?
Yeah, I was there for a good while. And we actually went there. I've been in and out of music. Well, I've basically been in music ever since I was a teenager. But, there would be times where I would, think, well, all right, I'm done with music now. And when we went there, that was one of those times that we went to work for this. It's a residential school for at-risk children is what it is.
And when you say at risk, I don't mean to butt in.
Yeah, no.
At risk, explain to our audience what at risk children
Yeah,
are.
so an at-risk kid is a kid that is in danger of becoming criminalized, or perhaps he's on drugs, or his family life is really bad in some way, is a really dysfunctional family life, and so parents would send their kids here to try to get them back on track, when they just felt like they didn't know what to do. And it was a really nice place that Tom Landry helped support all through his years when he was living. And the Dallas Cowboys to this day help support this place. It's called Happy Hill Farm.
And you were there for
9 years.
9.
We were there a long time. It's a great place, but I had only been there about a year. Of me not doing music anymore.
Right. That was I remember talking to you back then. Just like,
Yeah, that didn't last
but
that
what
long.
a beautiful studio. And what a beautiful church.
Yeah, that's right. And so they basically had me put together a full-blown commercial recording studio that was going to be like a fundraising PR sort of mechanism for the school. And I basically was the chief engineer at that studio for about 8 years, because I was at this place for about 9, but about a year after I'd been there. So for about 8 years we operated the studio, and we made a lot of really cool sounding records in there. Yeah.
May I ask you this? Weren't you highly involved in putting that together?
Mm-hmm.
It was your mind that when you put a studio together, it's much more than just let's put up some planks of wood.
Yeah, right.
Put some carpet on the floor and the wall. Let's get after it. You personally put that thing together, engineered it, designed it, and then told the workers to put it up the way you.
Well, what we did was they had a space there which had been their fine arts building, and so it was, and they wanted to use that space. They wanted to convert that space into a studio, and so it was pretty interesting because we talked about it, and we dripped some plans and so forth, and we could have just gutted it and just used the raw square footage. But rather than that, we thought it would be neat to have a recording studio that would have the feel of a venue, which this did. It had staging and lighting, and we thought maybe it would also be neat to even be able to do live recordings there.
Sure.
And so that's what we did. So we sort of made the studio fit into that space, and we had to turn. We sort of converted 2 rooms into the control room, and there was a back room behind the stage that we put up sound isolating glass, and we made it the drum room, and so the big auditorium was just the big live recording space.
And
then there were
your
several
ideas.
Yeah, that's sort of how we envisioned it. I did we did that in collaboration with the COO of that organization, Chuck, who's a really amazing guy, and I'm still involved with him to this day, actually.
Good.
But yeah, that's part of what we talked about when we were sort of planning it out. There were some isolation spaces, some vocal booths, and other things that were in there, and then had it all wired up. There was every place in that building, was wired for sound, so you could record anything, anywhere in there. Yeah.
Would you say that during that 9 years, each moment, each day, you were able to learn a little more how to hone your craft and make it better?
Yeah.
Being able to have that isolation up on a hill that was made by God.
Yeah.
Because it was, you could walk, if you needed inspiration, just walk outside.
Yeah.
Was that influential daily for you to get better as you are now?
Oh yeah, I was really green. I'm a musician myself, as you know. I play guitar and some other things, and had played in bands and
quite well.
I don't know. Well. But anyway, nevertheless, somewhere along the way, got interested in recording, and like a lot of people do, started with just home recording equipment, but had been involved in 2 sort of commercial studio endeavors prior to going there. But that was they were really small operations, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I was learning. I was really green, and when I went there, I was still green. Mm-hmm. And when they approached me about putting the studio in, I was probably way greener than I let on. And,
something we have to do sometimes.
Hey, listen, man. When you get
when
you get an opportunity, you just say yes and you figure it out. That's the one thing that I've learned over the years, and that's precisely what I did. And but yeah, so and I say this to a lot of people. That's where I learned how to make records, because I wasn't in business for myself. I was working for them, and they were very gracious, and they had basically they just wanted to see what we could do with this place, and so the pressure was pretty low, and. So we just got in there and I just made the best records I could. And, by the end of my time there, I really felt like I had learned how to make records and learned how to work with bands and organize projects. And it was a really great time of learning for me. That's really where I cut my teeth and learned how to do what I do.
I gathered that when you invited me down to do some guitar tracks, that you really had your thumb on the pulse of what you were doing. And I don't know how many years you were into it by then.
I was pretty far into it. 6 or 7 years into it by then. Yeah.
You certainly had it going on very good. We've been talking about all these things and these endeavors that you've gone through, and it sounds like that you've just jumped on the pony and done it by yourself. But your father and my brother had jam sessions every Saturday night out on Williams Road, north of town, before you were born.
Yeah.
And I was a little 10 to 12-year-old playing the guitar like a scratch board. And your father was very influential to me. He would give me that wink. He would give me that, "You're okay, Ricky." Mm-hmm. Tough love through my family, which I think sometimes is imperative.
Yeah.
To make you better quicker.
Yeah.
But let's talk about art.
Okay.
And I want to talk about your mother too.
Sure.
Because I knew your mother before I knew your father.
Yeah. Right.
But art influenced me in a way that I didn't ask him. He played it, and I picked it up.
Yeah.
In your lifetime, especially early on, what type of influence was art to you in moving you towards being in the music business?
Yeah. Well, I think just probably a lot of what influenced me is the same thing that influenced you. The story, obviously I don't remember this, but this is the story. You hear these stories so many times you think you remember them, but I couldn't have because I was just born.
They change every time.
That's right. But apparently the story goes is that when I was born, Dad was looking at me through the window, and he said, "Look at him, he's got long fingers like a guitar player."
Fascinating.
So it started early.
So come on now.
Started early.
Boy, I tell you what.
And I remember growing up, being a little kid and going to sleep, hearing people playing music in the den. It's a wonderful memory. And I wanted to be like my dad. And so I wanted to play, and he got me an acoustic guitar early, and he taught me all the open chords.
Sure.
And then basically said, so just to sit in, he taught me those chords, like I say, and he wanted me to just start sitting in there with those guys when they would play music, and I knew the open chords, and it was my job to just see what chords they were playing and to play along and to learn the changes, and he taught me the basic chord progressions. 1, 4, 5 is every song ever written, I suppose. And if you want to get real fancy, you throw a 6 minor in or a 2 chord or whatever.
And you just went over their head, but we're getting into that.
Yeah.
The number system.
Yeah, there you go.
Created by Quincy Jones and
the
late great.
It works.
Barry Beckett.
So he didn't refer to it in the numbers. I guess I'm sort of, reinventing the history here. Totally but anyway, nevertheless, that is what he taught me. And that's how I learned how to play guitar. And so I think that's a great way to learn. And
can I point something out to you?
Yeah, of course.
At an early age, Chad, upon himself by ear, learned to play James Taylor. Now, James Taylor, I don't care who you are, if you want to play it verbatim, you have to have the ear to pick out those dyads, those notes. You at an early age could play James Taylor.
Sweet baby James is hard to
beat. You could play it better. I remember as a youngster, you could play it. Jealous I was.
Wow.
And here I was, a big savvy rock and roller.
I think his memory is fading a little bit.
I think that's obvious, but
I appreciate it.
But that is true.
I do, yeah. James Taylor was a big influence, and then all the rock and roll stuff in the '80s, because I was an '80s kid,
Sure.
and all that stuff. And of course, my dad wasn't very interested in that kind of music, but the seeds had already been planted, and he had all these great instruments lying around. He had an old, I forget, maybe a '53, let's say, Gibson double cutaway TV model.
Let me tell you this:
TV yellow.
Yellow.
TV yellow.
Do I remember it?
You know why they called it TV yellow? Because it showed up in black and white shows on TV.
I remember this guitar had a big, like a Cobalt pickup on it.
Yeah, it had just a
ears.
P90
Yes.
in the bridge and a volume knob, and that was it, man.
Probably worth $60, $70, $100 now, huh?
Man,
Does he still have it?
no. He sold it about 20 years ago.
Well, for a good reason, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
I remember that guitar, double cutaway, with the ears on the pickups.
Yeah.
A fascinating guitar.
It's a great guitar, and he had an old Fender Tweed amp, and that's how I learned how to play rock and roll. Is I couldn't figure out how they got that sound, which of course I know now it was distortion, but I didn't know what to call it then. I didn't know what it was. But one day I went in and turned that Tweed amp to 10 and played an E chord, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what that is." There we go. So Dad didn't teach me those things directly, but he provided the occasion, so
Absolutely.
to speak. And he's always been supportive about that stuff, and liked that I was involved in music. He never was involved with recording, from an engineering sense. That was something that I got turned on to later. But certainly my love for music is what drove me to recording, because I don't see that as a technical endeavor. To me, that's still making music.
Sure. Well, you are a producer. You are a producer for a reason. Your passion definitely led you into that direction. And I'd like to talk to you now about what you're doing now with other artists.
Yeah.
And if you feel good enough about it, tell me some of the artists that you're
Okay.
working with that you
Yeah.
really think are on the cutting edge
Yeah.
of breaking out of here. And where they break from, we're in the great state of Texas, which has the
right.
greatest music in the world.
Sure does.
Europe recognizes us.
Yeah.
Europe recognizes Nashville.
Yeah.
But they recognize Texas as being the hello ground.
It's true.
And
It's
so
true.
tell me where you're at with your production and with your artists.
Okay, well, I'll tell you where. I'll start by telling you where we're working now. Well, you already mentioned KSIJ and Gladewater. That's
Sure.
where we're working. But I've
But
been
you
back
bounce.
do what?
You bounce.
Yeah, and I've been back in East Texas for about 7 years or so, and I've worked in several studios in East Texas. But the old KSIJ studio is where we've been since January, and it's been great. And yeah, we're working. I do a lot of work. When you do this for a while, you get to where people sort of know you for a particular area, and that's fine. And Texas country seems to be the area that I work in a lot, and I really love it. And that's a pretty big tent. That can mean kind of Southern rock over here on this end, Americana on this end,
Absolutely.
straight up, George Strait type country here in the
Right.
middle. But it's all kind of under that big umbrella, and that's the kind of stuff I do. Some great artists that I've been working with over the last year or two. I'll mention a couple local guys, like say Riley Redding.
Okay.
Folks should
Very
check
good.
out Riley. We're about to start his second record actually
yeah.
this week, and he's great. All of these people you can get online and find them. They're out there. Their music is out there. I did a great record with a guy from the Austin area named Kirk Baxley recently, and folks should check it out. The Pain We Bring is the name of that album. It's wonderful.
It's right there to your left, by the way.
Do I?
It's right there to your left.
Oh yeah,
On the bottom.
yeah. Some of these records are here. Yeah, there's the Kirk Baxley record to be sure, and just did a great record for a guy named Gary Patrick. I think folks should check out. And then also a local boy named I say local from Lindale named Chris Colston, and some of the viewers may know Chris. He's really great. I've done 2 records for him, and the most recent record we did just 2 or 3 months ago, I forget, and it's being received very well. Lots of streams on Spotify, which is for these younger guys that are doing that 18 to 24 demographic. They don't really care about terrestrial radio that much. They just care about streaming numbers, and so he's doing very well in that market. Just got signed to Red 11 as an artist, and they're touring all over God's green earth now, and they're doing really well. So
And
I'm
that's
proud of Chris.
yielding for them too.
Do what?
That's yielding. That's
Oh.
making them money in these live performances.
Yeah.
Being able to have these outlets, their
Yeah.
music being heard.
Yeah.
These youngsters, oldsters, people
Yeah.
being able to fall in love with their songs
Yeah.
and going to their concerts.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
correct?
That's where it's at now. Live performance has always been an important part, but used to, Ricky, the way it was is you made a record and you went on tour to sell your record.
Correct.
But that's not the way it works anymore. You make a record as it's almost like buying advertising. You make a record to drive people to your shows now.
Exactly.
It's a different business
and
model.
you don't have to pay them
Yeah.
through publishing or,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I could go on forever
Sure,
about this.
of course,
But
yeah.
at least it's like you say, it's advertisement.
That's right. It's just
It's
a different
pushing your
business
product.
model now. It's a different business. The music business is
Do you
different.
like this form of
It has its pros and cons.
Okay. Like everything.
Yeah, like everything. That's right. So money is on the front end now, especially for somebody like me. So if I help a songwriter sort of shape a song in the studio, sometimes what you would do is you would sort of maybe decrease your rate for back-end points and so forth.
Okay.
There's not as much money there as there used to be.
Let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Explain to our audience what the front end and the back end is.
Okay, so front end money means money that you would just get paid as a fee to do whatever it is you might be doing up front. Back end money would be royalty money based on album sales or publishing or what have you.
Which has a possibility to.
Yes, yeah, if you
Right.
get a big hit, even now, if you get a monstrous hit, that could still mean a lot of money. But used to, even if it wasn't a massive hit, there was still some money there to be made.
Is that right?
There's really not that much money there to be made unless it is just a
Unless
blockbuster,
it's a
massive
monster-
hit.
So there is a possibility of failure
Yeah.
because of the lack of success.
So some people might see that as a con. I think but I don't want to be pessimistic because there's a lot of pros too
And I think that you work with artists
that see it that way.
That are
Yes.
going to work. That are going to work
Well,
out.
that's right.
You don't just deal with anybody.
That's right. And also too, I think the Texas music scene is a really good example of how the new business model works for sort of this new generation of artists, because Texas artists are fiercely independent, and a lot of these guys, even the most successful artists on the Texas scene, are independent artists. They don't have a label, and they have an operation, to be sure. The big ones like an Aaron Watson or a Cody Johnson, they have a big team, but it's their team,
Right.
and they're making
Lot
the
of money
money.
going out.
They're
Right.
making the money. But even the guys that are, the sort of the mid-level acts and so forth that are out there hustling and doing all that work, they can release an album on their own and release it to the world, and they don't need a record label to say yes, you can do that or no, you can't. It gives a lot of opportunity to really talented artists that are willing to get out there and work hard. It gives them an opportunity to release music to the world that they may not have ever had an opportunity to do in the old system. But they have to finance these records themselves now. That's
Right.
the downside.
Well,
because they still
yes.
cost money to make.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'll just throw this in real quick. My last record, RMG Records.
Yeah.
They gave me a choice. We can buy this record for you. It belongs to us, or you can pay for it
Right.
and make it on the back end.
Yeah, right.
And my first single came out, and boy, I paid my investors back,
Yeah.
but didn't have a dime.
Yeah.
Released the second single to Europe, straight up,
Yeah.
not as a secondary.
Yeah.
And that's where I made my money.
Yeah, right.
And so this is a form of that.
Yeah, right.
And
That's exactly right.
Sometimes persistence.
That would have been a really sort of pioneering business model at the time when you
Well,
did that. But now
2000
it's just kind of the way it's done.
The way it's done.
Yeah.
And so, which proves that no guts, no glory.
That's right. That's
And
right.
and I like the idea. I like the idea of Texas being able to stand alone as they are.
Yeah.
And you being a Texas producer,
Yeah.
you have a picture from, and you'll go down in the Hall of Fame, in my opinion,
Well, I appreciate that.
as being one of the cutting edge producers that backs this style of.
Well, I appreciate that. We
making records.
we do love it, and we're working with some great artists, and we're making some great sounding records, and that's all you can ask for.
Well, you got children now.
Yes,
How's that working?
they're not really even children anymore.
I mean,
They're basically grown.
do they have long hair?
No, except my daughter.
But you're joking there. Except your daughter.
Yeah.
Well, let me just say this. I used to, my brother had a horse ranch, 10 acres. And Chad and his little brother come out, and I had long hair, and I played, I think, Savvy or Head East. And
Yeah.
his little brother come in and goes, "Are you a girl?" And I go, you ever had a girl beat you up? Boy, they take off running.
Yeah.
And it was cute. Chad wasn't involved. He was a little more.
I was a little more refined.
Well,
A little
got
more
a great
refined than
brother. I
Jacob.
love him to death. I got to see him at our reunion at your
Yeah.
grand opening. And
Yeah.
what a fine gentleman he is.
Good-
That's
good
just
dude.
what children do. It was beautiful.
Being
but
silly.
now you have children.
Yes. My oldest is graduated college and got married in May. Can you believe that?
You look like you just graduated from college.
I'm really 135, and you just don't know it. I've just aged well.
Well, keep aging that well.
Yeah.
Let's just slice thumbs and do
Yeah.
a blood brother.
That's right. Oh,
done
and my
well.
middle son, I should tell you, my middle son is a traveling musician. He's actually Chris Colson. I mentioned Chris Colson.
Yes.
That's his bass player.
Wow.
And he tours all around with. He started his senior year in high school and missed a few days of school, let's say, of his senior year, which he was all too happy to do.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
I can't miss a few days of school. You're not a real musician.
Yeah.
But your son that you were talking about before, who has his own style,
Yeah.
making his own records,
Yeah.
and good to your son who's playing bass.
Yes.
One day they'll probably have a big band together.
Yeah. Right.
How is he doing? And where do you see him going?
Well, he, it's interesting because my first child and my daughter who has just started high school, she's definitely sort of college bound in the sense that she really wants to. She has a lot of things she wants to study. I know she'll go to a college. My oldest son went to graduated from Dallas Baptist University and has a business degree. My middle son is very much like me. College did not interest him,
Right.
does not interest him, and he wanted
That's
to play.
okay.
And in fact, he came to me. I guess at the beginning of his junior year, and said, "I don't want to," or somewhere during his junior year, let's say, he said, "I don't want to be in band in school this year, high school band,
See?
because I want a gig." And during football season, you're
Sure.
really out you can't play on the weekends because you're
Right.
at the football field. And so I told him, great, and I told him I'd help him find a gig, and I did, and or help get him an audition anyway. He had to have the goods to get the gig, and he did. And that's what he wants to do with his life. He wants
I
to
have
play.
heard he's quite creative.
He's great. He's a
I've
really
heard
good
he's
player.
like just off the chart with his creativity.
Yeah, he's great. He's a good player, and everybody loves him, and he's a great hang on the road, and he's just a good kid. Yeah.
Great hang on the road.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
That's important, by the way.
Oh my gosh, that is the most important thing. Early on in my life, I was with Savvy, met a band called Blood Rock. The guitar player was Lee Pickens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man, they were on Columbia Records.
Oh,
Man,
wow.
they were hot.
Sure.
Fort Worth. The guitar player saw a plane crash.
Yeah.
Ran to it. All he heard was DOA.
Right.
Dead on Arrival.
Sure.
Wrote a song about it. We became friends and songwriting buddies.
Yeah.
At the age of 19, I was. And he said, "What are you so disgruntled about?" And I said, "Well, I just left a band from Longview, which was called Push. Bobby Albin, Randy Phelps, Gary Witt, Terry Sawyer.
Terry Sawyer, I
the
know Terry.
best. I mean, and I was the low man on the totem pole. And now I'm playing with a band that is very good.
Yeah.
We got along great.
Yeah.
How important to your sons, Jackson, and the band he's in, is it to work with people that you get along with,
Yeah.
as opposed to people that are the best?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think you make a good point, and I think that was because I mentioned something about him being a good hang. It's really important because you're out there a lot, and you're in close quarters, and you could have somebody who was just technically amazing, but if they're a jerk or just not cool to be around, it's a toxic environment. It's not a cool situation. So you can have guys in there that are really great players, but they're just good people, and they're good people to hang out with, and that'll win every time, especially for road bands. Sometimes you might opt to go with the jerk in the studio, but you're not going to hit the road with him.
And you'll learn more.
And
quicker,
sometimes you get both out of one guy, and that's great, but it doesn't always work out
rarely,
that way.
and the longevity is there.
Yeah.
What you learn is better.
Yeah.
And
Not
you
that
don't-
all studio musicians are
Right.
jerks, by the way.
Right.
Don't quote me.
But you do get along
Yeah.
with them, and you
Yeah.
become friends.
Yeah, right.
Ladies and gentlemen, he's like a brother to me, a little brother. Chad Mauldin, one of the greatest studio producers there is in this town, in this area, from Freeport to Granbury, in the state of Texas. He's working right now at the KSIJ studios out of Gladewater. I suggest you look into him. His mother, Jackie, who I love so much, I love you, Jackie, and the best to you. My pleasure to you. Art, you taught me one of the best country guitar licks there ever were. Chad, we've only covered the top of the layer
Sure.
of the cake, but
Right.
I have to ask you, with things you got going on, tell us about your social media and your studio.
Where folks can find me and all that good stuff.
Where they can find you,
Yeah.
because you need to be known and you need to be found.
Okay, well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, of course, my website is mauldinprod.com, short for Mauldin Productions. MAULDINPROD.com. And then, of course, I'm on Facebook, Mauldin Prod, or Mauldin Productions on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter, all that stuff. Just
They have
type
to
it
know.
in and you'll find me.
That's good. That's good. Any other outlets?
I think that's it. All the social media outlets and my website, mauldinprod.com. I think
Last
that's-
thing, what do you think about Boston Chris being a wrestler?
Being a wrestler,
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't want to grab a hold of him. I probably couldn't get loose
Well,
quick
I
enough.
wouldn't either, but he was a
What'd I
wrestler
say?
one time. No, don't.
Yeah.
Listen, he's ready. He's on the teleprompter right now. He's going to kill
Yeah.
me. But I do love him. But I can't wait to speak this. He's going to say get a haircut, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Never been a better friend,
Yeah.
and he's like a big brother never had.
Sure.
But boy, it takes him a long time to get this going here. So you've been here on ETX Rocks from the beginning,
Yeah. That's true. That's true.
and I'm going to tell you that that means a lot. And I've begged Boston Chris to let me be on this program from the
Yeah.
beginning,
Well, I'm glad he got
and
you up here.
I did it with passion, and I think he knows that. But
Well.
there's nobody better than Boston, and we have admiration for the same man. That's Uncle Dallas. And
That's
you,
right.
me, but Jackie and my Art, just let them know that
I will.
my love is to them.
Yeah, well,
ladies
that's
and
great.
gentlemen, thank you for ETX Rocks, the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show, the producer and the man, Chad Mauldin.
Emanating from the piney woods of East Texas, this is the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show. RLG has been playing music since the mid-70s. Ricky Lynn Gregg was the very first country artist to have a website and the first Native American country artist signed to a major label. In the 1990s, he had six top 10 CMT videos. He had 3 studio albums, including one that reached the top 40 on the Billboard charts in 1992. He has had 3 top 75 Billboard singles, including the number 36 If I Had a Cheating Heart in 1993. And of course, almost 30 years later, he is the current and reigning 2017 ETX Music Guitarist of the Year. Guys, this is the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show.
For what you wish for, it might come true. Boy, and if it does, what are you gonna do?
Welcome to the Ricky Lynn Gregg Show.